it's more of a, we're going to try and get an insight into the background of the two guys here. You've been listening to me and Cairbre for the past 2 hours, so we might introduce Brendan. I think most of us know him. He is, now correct me because there's a lot here I have to get through. Okay, so we have 3 All-Ireland senior medals, 1 under 21, 2 minor All-Ireland medals, 1 Young Player of the Year in 2010, and 3 All-Stars on top of that. All right, so that's a pretty illustrious career so far. I suppose the main 2 medals, though, I want to ask you about are your 2 set dancing medals. Yeah. So
That's
give us
all the agility can.
Yeah, give us a quick little background on those 2 medals.
Don't know about that.
Yeah. No, it definitely does help with coordination, I'd say that.
Yeah.
I did a bit of set dancing when I was younger. So score and flag and that was big in Bursley. So we were always thrown into it. All of us, 4 boys in my family, and we were thrown in music and dancing. And I've actually said it now more so from a performing point of view. We were used to being on stage like from a young age, and so like playing in front of crowds or anything like that never really bothered me. And I think it was actually because of the experiences maybe as a youngster. Like.
And what age were you when you won these medals?
14 or 15, I think.
And was that the end of it then? Hurling took over?
Yeah, not really. Well, it did, I suppose, as I joined the county minors when I was under 16, and that's kind of when it started to filter away. But it actually was filtering away anyway in the club. It kind of took a little bit of a dip.
Yeah.
But I still actually used to do a little bit of set dancing as a substitute, kind of for my brother Declan was still dancing at senior level. And I'd sub in whenever I could. But
if you're
I've left
Cayley, you'd be okay to fit
I'd
in.
manage I'd manage it right, but obviously with the injury I got last year now, I think I'll be leaving the dancing alone.
Okay, so we'll go back to hurling so for a minute. We'll move on from the dancing. So we know you've 3 All-Ireland senior medals, but one of those was as captain in 2016. And if I'm not mistaken, you were captain in 2007 maybe of the minor team?
Yeah,
2007.
Yeah.
I think now I'm open to correction on this, but there was only 5 people who've captained both minor and senior level. Is that right?
You're not going to ask me to name them, are you?
No, I'm not going to ask because I don't even know if
And
that's correct. But I think there's only a small few, but you're one of them.
Cody is one. Brian Cody is one. Tony Wall. Jimmy Dial one, is he?
Brendan Maher has one.
Yeah, I actually have I got a gift of a slate thing. There's 5 that have done it.
Okay.
There's a Cork man as well, I think maybe.
Yeah, but that's fantastic achievement.
3 tip men,
you know?
Cork man and Cody.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And tell me now, 2016 as captain, was that more special than 2010 and this year? Or how does it compare?
In different ways, I'd say. Yeah, I kind of found this year special, obviously, with my circumstances coming back from the ACL and just kind of, I suppose, having that journey. And so this year was probably as special, but they're different. And 2016 was obviously a huge year because of being captain and that, and especially with the experience of 14 and being so close. And I thought then that was my chance. You know, I was expecting to not have the captaincy after that. I thought they'd moved on to 15 and they didn't. And then when Mick Ryan took over, I said he'll probably make a change as well, and he actually gave me the chance. So I was very lucky that Mick didn't make the change and he kept me on as captain. So it was obviously a special year, and to be able to bring it back to Boris, that was a special occasion as well. And but it's always all your wins. It's very hard to pick them apart and say, because they all have different. You know, it's a different journey all the time, and it's very hard to pick one over the other.
I suppose you had 3 kind of distinct journeys there, because in 2010 you were in the panel. We were reasonably fresh into the panel, maybe a year or 2 years.
Yeah.
And you ended up starting the game, winning Young Player of the Year that year. And you know, you're just a young lad coming in. That's your first one, and now you're one of the veterans of the team essentially.
Yeah.
But you've had an interesting 18 months or so since the injury. Can you just talk us through maybe what was going through your mind when the injury actually struck? What was your first reaction?
I can remember the sound of the crowd with the goal going in, because it actually happened when Clare got the goal, the last round of the Munster Championship last year, and Podge Collins was running through, and I was kind of thinking to myself, there, we're talking about cutting, and that he did a nice little cut on me and I wasn't able to follow him. So I tried to pivot to turn back with him, and the knee gave way. But I can remember the sound of the crowd, and I was there. That was obviously, I didn't see it, but I could hear it. And I was like, there was obviously something happened there. And I remember turning around and seeing the umpire waving the flag. And after that, then I knew something was wrong. I knew something. I could feel that crunch, and I didn't feel that pop that people talk about. Actually, I felt more of a crunch, and I think that was actually the meniscus. That was the damage that was on there. But like, I mean, you're just obviously losing the match was kind of shitty.
Of course.
Obviously. But like the few days after, you're only thinking of yourself. That's being completely selfish about it and honest. Like, while all I was thinking of was like, I'm facing into surgery, I'm facing into however long, I don't know if I'm going to hurl again properly or hurl for tip again, and all that doubt kind of starts to creep in straight away. And like the game that was lost is kind of forgotten about.
Yeah.
And then you very quickly kind of shift your mindset to working on the prehab part of the surgery, and surgery happens, and it's like, it is quite a quick process in terms of getting back into the gym, which was really important for me. And I was getting flashbacks there where Cairbre was doing those few little drills, like we were at that in the dark up in Dr. Morris on several occasions together. So like, I would attribute like my recovery, that stuff was like a key element to getting from the gym straight line running to getting back into return to play. That's the stuff that really made the difference with me. Just like my biomechanics and everything had to be worked on. Like, it wasn't that I forgot how to turn, but because of the, I suppose, restriction I had in my knee, and I wasn't willing to dive into it, and I wasn't willing to plant as much, my biomechanics were affected, and we really had to work on that, learning how to cut properly, learning how, like, relearning it. So I really treat it as a skill, and we practice it every night.
So you can see the value of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
During your rehab process.
And I find myself now, when you're doing the warm-ups, even with Borsalino, our coach, Angelo, like, would be big on that element of it as well. But anytime I'm turning, I'm thinking of the things that I learned with Cairbre, of, you know, like making sure my ankle and my knee are outside my hip and having that strong base, and even applying it, like, then when you're going into tackling someone, you're not upright, like that, you have that strong base and you're able to move, and that drop step, it's really important as a defender that you're able to change direction smoothly and efficiently. So I think it's just awareness, like, and if you can create awareness amongst your players of why they're doing it and the relevance of it in a game, they'll buy into it a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. And Cairbre, I suppose you actually came in, I wouldn't say midway, but a good while after the injury. And had you the surgery done before Cairbre came in?
Yeah.
So you came in quite late then in the process. So how did you kind of integrate into his rehab program after that, and how did you find the transition into it?
Yeah, I suppose, like, so myself and Brendan met just, I suppose, soon after I kind of started the role. We met in Lauren Parker, and Brendan at that point had already come through a lot of like the darker stuff. We were just, all you can do is very simple stuff, all that very basic stuff. He came through that, and I guess, I mean, it was very easy for me when Brendan mentioned, like, mindset there. Like, when someone has an injury like that, that's, for me and my experience of seeing it before in Arsenal as well, is that the athletes that come through are ones that have the strongest mindset. So I suppose I saw my role very much just as a facilitator with Brendan, because Brendan, he doesn't need coaxed to be told what to do. He's very experienced, and so essentially what we did was led out. My role really was just to support him and help structure it a little bit. Like, so I would just send him basically every 6 weeks, like a 6 week plan or a 5 week plan, with the sessions dotted in there. And like, and I mean, the big thing is that I suppose I kind of been wise to since watching players of Brennan's level rehabbing from injuries like that, is how much it takes to actually get back fully to 100% and beyond that again. Is the amount of sessions you're doing every week. Like, every single day you might have 2 sessions, the Sunday off. So it's really just, I suppose for me, it was just making sure that we were looking after all the different boxes, because there's a lot there. You have the prehab stuff, the gym work and then the conditioning, and then moving through what we did there, like the linear, into change of direction and then integrating all together. So yeah, I mean it was a different process for me working with Brendan compared to working with a kid who I might be very strict with and saying like we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and that's it. I think one of a massive thing I think that helped Brendan was how his approach to, like, we had set, say, a target for a league game to come back for, and it's very easy to just be gung ho about that, but we kind of came towards that game. We kind of, the two of us along with the coaches, decided that we'll just wait a little bit longer, and having that little bit of kind of wisdom like is a massive part in not listening to your body and like not pushing through things when you might not like, you're always going to have days throughout the process you're not going to feel great. That's just the way it is. Like, and I suppose we had the support of the management that we were able to just like take the foot off the pedal a little bit on those days and manage it while we were getting stronger all the way through it.
And of course, it was an incredible return, because you ended up having a fantastic season, another All-Star, another All-Ireland title, but of course, a county title with Bursley as well only a few weeks ago, which you're preparing for the Munster final this weekend. So how, like, it's been an incredible year after such a, I'm not sure how you describe last year for you, but in terms for personally, we'll say from the injury, but it's been an incredible return to play. And how does it feel now to actually top off that year with the county title with Bursley, first in 33 years?
Yeah, it feels great, yeah. And maybe just to go back to Cairbre's point, he's probably underselling himself a bit there, being a bit too modest. But the biggest thing I got, and maybe it's just relevant as coaches from Cairbre, along with the expertise and laying out the programs in the 6-week cycles, was like he really invested into me. I felt like he invested into, like, he did probably 60 or 70% of the sessions with me, and just having that support and knowing that like your coach is actually investing into you and that really actually cares about what your journey is, I found that a huge support. So we used to meet here at 7 o'clock before work. We'd go through our prehab stuff, and I'd go off to work and we'd meet again in the evenings. So he was committing as much as I was, you know, and I'm not sure if it's possible maybe in certain situations, like, so whatever your situation is, whatever team you're with, but wherever you can, to be able to show that and get that bit of one-to-one interaction, like if you could get that in 5 minutes of one-to-one interaction with a player that's injured, is massive for them. And it's just not to undervalue that, like that it is really important to, just because a guy is injured and he's on the sideline, if you can give him 5 minutes of the session doing something with him one-to-one, it means an awful lot to him. So that was just maybe on Cairbre's point there. Like, obviously he was doing what he was doing, but I just got huge support from that. In terms of this year then, just returning to play, like the mindset is big for me. I don't think about my knee anymore. I don't feel like I'm injured anymore. So like that, I'm not really sure how that transition happened. And I think it was just kind of, you need to expose the player to the game situations, and like we did contact drills. Like, he's tough fucker. Like we did full on contact drills like before I went into contact with any other player, and so I was exposed to it, and like it was dodgy enough starting off. Like I wasn't, you know, I was compensating a little bit, and you go through that journey of, you know, just getting over that barrier or getting through that barrier. And then when I was able to return to play, I just felt like, well, I've done all this now. I've been here before, or I've got through it. So, like there's so much that goes on like during the recovery. It's very hard to say like, well, do this, and that's the way it should go. Everyone's is different, like, and everyone's journey is different, and that adaptability that Cairbre showed and that I was willing to go with is really important as well. You know, as a coach, not to be confident enough to say like, we need to pull back here now just because we said we were going to hit this target. You know, like it's like when you're setting goals now, I think they're saying like your SMART goals is now becoming like SMART. They're adding an A onto it, like to be adaptive, so that you can change it, and don't be afraid to change it. Like we planned on getting back to a league game, we came to it and we're like, you know what, let's hold back a few weeks because it didn't really matter. We were only going to be doing it for the sake of it, really. I was able to get a couple of club challenge match in before I came to the league game against Dublin then, and for me that was a much better call even though maybe at the time I was kind of itching like to get back. So patience is important.
I think it's something that you mentioned already. It's like it's unbelievable how quick it goes in. Like if we kind of worked backwards, I suppose, from okay, we have a target, and then going backwards in terms of okay, we need to be doing full training for 2 weeks leading up to that. Before that, then like modified training sessions and contact stuff outside the training. Suddenly go back and like you literally have no time really to waste. Like that's how we found it, and that's what when we came closer and closer to our turn, I suppose that's the most dangerous, dodgiest period because actually you feel 100% now. You don't feel like your knees like not strong, but that's when it was most important for us to hold back a little bit. And again, it's like we have plans are great and all, but like Brendan said, if we were able to just go, man, not today, we'll just wait till the next day. And I think that's probably the biggest thing. I mean, like a lot of the research will say, like for every month that you hold back in that return to play, your chances of re-injuring just go down 10%. So I think that's what stood us as well.
I think it shows the value in the long-term planning as well from a coach point of view of it actually focused us straight away because we looked way ahead and we worked back and then we went, Jesus, we actually only have 2 weeks to get this in now. So let's go. And it actually did focus us in on the now, like, and we probably wouldn't have had that had we not looked so far ahead and worked back from that. So like whatever your goal is for the team, like you need to have that long-term goal, work back and say, okay, well, what's the priority now, and focus on that.
And again, like it ties right back to what we're doing there, because we would say, okay, like we have literally 2 weeks, like 2 weeks in linear acceleration, because we need to move on to like cutting, then we need to move on to like making it reactive and stuff like that. So that,
So that's where your periodization and planning really comes into play.
And deloading as well. Again, some that's like, it's just so easy to like forget to do it properly. I think when you're caught up in like training and you have championship and like everyone's feeling good, but that we always just made sure that this week's a deload week. We just pulled out like half the sessions. Like,
and just to follow on from that, like as a coach and a player, the value of maybe monitoring. Well, first of all, what kind of monitoring techniques do you use, and then what do you feel is the value of monitoring, and as a player as well, the value to you as in terms of your recovery and managing your load. So, Cairbre.
I suppose I can explain how we do it. I mean, very common way that a lot of teams will monitor load is just the session RP. So like we'd get an RP for every session, so that's an intensity rating from 1 to 10, and the duration of the session, and we're getting that. So I'm monitoring that week to week. So like again, it was an easy way for us to see that we were building accumulating load. You might have like 2,000 units of load in 1 week, 2,500 or up to 3,000, and then we need to drop it right down and cut that in half. So it let us know that we were deloading when we needed to, and we were adding the load when we needed to as well. And then on top of that, when we were back on the field involving pit stuff, we used GPS quite a lot. So the biggest use I got from that would be, like, let's say Brendan might perform, say, 700 meters of high speed running in a match. So running over 5.5, like a certain speed. And we just need to see that we're kind of setting them up to be able to do that in the game by, in training sessions, hitting those targets. So I just give us that feedback that in terms of intensity of training was also going towards game specific intensities, and also that the loads were accumulating and then dropping when we needed to drop.
And how do you feel then as a player that can kind of impact you as a player in terms of your recovery or even your performance?
Yeah, I suppose we were using an app where MetriFit, like we were given our RPs obviously for sessions, but in terms of like if you're experiencing DOMs or anything like that, like that you're able to record it and to let the lads know. And I think it's important then for the coach to actually follow up on it. If I'm in the red zone, like if I put in a 3 out of 10 there on energy levels like that, it's not overlooked by the coach. So he has to make sure he's watching it, because I can come into training and if I'm being a little bit of a prick about it, I'll say nothing and see, well, was he looking at it? So if you are using a tool like that, it is really important that you're on the ball with it, like, and that you're listening through that, obviously through that medium of communication, like that you're acknowledging that there's players not feeling well, and then it might be just pull them out of a little bit of conditioning at the end or whatever it is. But because players can obviously react differently to the general load, and like I might get through a few sessions fine and be feeling okay, like energy levels, but it could take a toll on someone else or vice versa. And like, in fairness to the lads, they're really good at that, like that, you know, it's like saying, right, look, let's pull you out of this and give you 10 minutes off, and that 10 minutes can actually be a huge difference to you mentally. Like, so if you are using RPs, or if you're using any sort of energy tracking or anything like that, to make sure that you're diligent with it.
Yeah, and I think player buy-in then from a coach's point of view is also key. You know, because we all know some players, they might just maybe do it in the morning, just same things every day, or they mightn't bother doing it at all. So how did you find player buy-in with that, or was it okay?
It's actually,
you know?
yeah, it's an interesting
I see
point.
Brendan laughing now, so
Because-
there's obviously some problems.
We have to put a deadline on it, didn't we?
yeah, like, and because it's a big, it's a kind of, okay, so what we used was NAP, I think it's MetriFit, it's an Irish company as well, and it was basically a questionnaire. It was like five questions based on how they feel physically, like how they sleep, quality of the sleep, how you feel mentally, and and then how ready are you to train between 1 and 10. And it's like it's gold to us, and like the information we get from that, and especially the coaches and the management loved it, to be able to just, it's basically like having a conversation. You can't have a conversation with 40 players, but you can in 1 minute get a real snapshot of where they are, and every single day. And the thing is, so you're making the team do it, like, and it's a bit of an effort every single morning that they have to do this. And like, if it's quite telling of the kind of the culture of the team, and it's a bit of a buzzword, I suppose, but it is like a massive part of the success of, I guess, our team last year. And I've seen it on the flip side in previous teams, which you try and implement that, and some people don't do it, some do, and then it's kind of like it can have nearly a negative effect. But I suppose that was a strength of our group, that we have a lot of leaders in the group that were able to, I suppose, take ownership of it, and the management were just also put a lot of value on it. So previously, say if I thought it was important, but the management didn't, it usually fell by the wayside. But because the management put so much value on it, and it took a bit of time. But again, now everyone does it every single day, and I think it's telling you something about the greater kind of what's going on within a squad.
And you mentioned culture a minute ago. You came from working with Arsenal Academy and the Arsenal women's team to working a professional setup to working in an amateur intercounty setup. How did you find, I suppose, the transition first of all, and then the cultural differences?
Yeah, I suppose I was working with like Limerick Academy, so kids under 18 down, under 14 before I went to Arsenal. So I hadn't worked with the senior intercounty team. So in Arsenal, of course, it was exposed. It is like a massively, unbelievably professional club. Everything is just like, you don't get away with anything. It's not like on the money. And like Des Ram played a big part in, I suppose, me and bringing me on that, and things being like very professional. Like you don't miss you don't miss your RPs, you don't miss your reporting every week has to be done right. And the players, I suppose, actually quite lucky with the women's team and how they applied themselves to training and stuff like that. And so there was an element of that, very professional in one sense, but in another sense, there's definitely, you get a feeling that they're coming to work like every day, and sometimes they could be more concerned with like keeping their contract, which is fair enough because their livelihood, and outside of football, they actually don't have anything, or don't have even any education really, so they're really dependent on holding on to this, and you just get a sense of that. So I suppose after 3 years coming in the tip, it was, I genuinely couldn't believe what, I suppose when I was coming in, I didn't know what to expect, what I could expect to demand of the players, because in Arsenal I had them there 9 to 4. In that time they had to do whatever we got them to do, you know, but it's different here because these lads have jobs and they're in college. So I was really blown away by, like, I suppose the first example was when I started with Brendan or very early on, and what he was willing to do, like, come train before work to 5 o'clock, come back to training and get home at 10 or half 10. So and I suppose that's what, when you see that from your players, like, I mean, it gives you even more, you just want to help them even more like that, because they're putting their whole life on hold for her. So there is something special about that, and that, like, yeah, there's something very nice about coming to training I'm very lucky in terms that it's my job, and everyone else has a job and they come to training. So at 5:30 when I'm there, and like Liam, the manager's coming in, like he's singing and dancing, like he's just buzzing to be there, like coming from his job. So that, and then the players are seeing him, and it kind of infectious, like. So everyone's coming with this like unbelievably positive energy, like, and so I suppose that was great for me to come into this environment, and then everyone spurs each other on in that regard.